going on? No Horsing Around family. Zach Boyd, Stephen Burton, back at it again for another Wednesday live stream. Going to do a little bit of combine talk. You know, I had an opportunity, Stephen, to hear Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard up there. I think Steichen went about 12 minutes. Ballard went about 13, 14 minutes. A lot of good things in there. You know, you're never going to get a lot from those conversations. But I do think it's worthy of a discussion, Stephen. I do think that there were some things, little nuggets hidden in there, and I'm just interested in your thoughts, as well as everybody else who jumps in here. Unboxing Mania, thank you so much, man. First to ring that bell, first to comment. We appreciate you guys. Guys, you can light us up with your combine thoughts, and we'll do our best to kind of navigate back and forth through this. Stephen, just some initial takeaways that you had. Did you have a chance to listen to both of them, one of them? Where are you at with that?
So I got a chance to listen to them both. And then I think I told you before we even got on, I rewatched Ballard more than Steichen. But obviously, I mean, it is what it is. I love, so it's going to sound weird. I'm going to say something about Steichen, and then we'll dive more deep, obviously, in what they're saying. And I'll say something kind of about Ballard, right? So with Ballard, at least, he tells you everything without telling you nothing. He always does. Like if you listen to what he says, he tells you what he's thinking. He's very honest without giving away anything.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. We can have our discussions about whether he should be the GM or what we think or how arrogant he is. It's one thing he's always been. He's always been very honest without being too honest. So, and with Steichen, he just I appreciate a guy who's just like, he's very straight. He's not a media dude. Like I'm getting that feeling already. Like you're already kind of getting the feeling a little bit, not in a bad way, but he's not there to talk to you. He's there to win football games. Yeah. And I'm not, and I want to make sure I'm saying this in a way that I'm not trying to say that he's not good with the media, but you can tell it's something he's going to have to learn a little bit more. And he just puts it out and he tells you what he thinks and throws in some dadgums and some, different things like that. And I appreciate that. There's no fluff to what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Kind of what you see is what you get with Shane Steichen. Maybe a little bit of a breath of fresh air when it comes right down to it, because we've heard a lot of talk over the last couple of years, right? A lot of hype building us up. Now we're kind of to a situation where we have the polar opposite when you're talking about Shane Steichen, because he's not going to elaborate. He's not going to go off on this big tangent and sell you on this crazy pipe dream. He just really seems to me like he's a lot more interested in football and a lot less interested in the other things, the media and all of that stuff. Not saying that's a detriment, not saying it's a bad thing from him. I just think that where he's going to thrive is when it's X's and O's, it's in the behind the scenes stuff that we, haven't had a chance to see what's going to happen one way or the other as he's trying to put this staff together. It was pretty clear that mission number one was just completing the staff, putting it all together. Just got a couple more holes to fill right there. Look at this, man. Got my aunt hopping in here. We call her Aunt KK. KK, thank you so much.
My daughter last week.
Hey, her and my Uncle Ed, man. I mean, they longtime Colts fans back in Rockport, Indiana, and they're on here to support the show. Love you guys. Thank you for hopping on. Hey, bring the juice. Always, always, always welcome. Thank you so much. Everybody knows, that we're fans of them. Have been since day one. Let's go to
we got our newest member, Sarah. She joined the family last week. She's pumped for the future. Go Colts.
Yep.
I want to touch on one that came up top too. I'm because it's appropriate. I'm gonna give Basel his shout. That was a frustrating thing. I will give him that. It was frustrating. I'm sure there'll be a cut that comes out maybe from the Colts or someone where you can hear the questions, because you kind of had to decipher from the answers what the questions were. That was kind of frustrating, but you kind of got the gist a little bit.
Yeah, it's always going to be that way too. They always kind of frame it like this. The microphone is basically for the person talking, but they don't do as good of a job for the media guys in the back room. And it is a little bit frustrating that you can't go back and you can't hear those questions directly. Got to throw that volume up, man, and kind of put your ear to the, to the phone or the laptop or whatever you're listening to them on.
This is
But
funny to me too. Shane wasn't wearing one piece of Colts gear. Neither was a lot of the coaches. If you really look, no
yeah,
one really wears. They're there. They're there to be comfortable. Heck, what was it? A few years ago, Bill Belichick wore I think it was a John Hopkins hoodie or something like that. I
yeah.
mean, and
I
what
want to
was it?
tell Mania too. We're going to get into this question, probably Mania. We're going to save it for a little bit down the road. Probably just want to get some initial thoughts on the Steichen and the Ballard thing. Um, just a few takeaways that I had. Ballard to me was fairly transparent, and I know a lot of people are going to take things that he said and they're going to pull it out of whatever direction that they want to pull it out of, right? Like I'm going to do the same thing. I can't help it. I'm a human being. I hear what I want to hear, right? And when I hear a lot of the things he says, I like, oh my gosh, he's talking about Bryce Young, right? But then he's just in generalities, kind of talking about it. I think it's important for us as fans. The real takeaway for me was he basically said he's going to go into this with an open mind and he's not going to just not draft someone because of size, weight, anything like that. That being said, that's going to be a factor. There's no doubt about it, and I think both of them have been adamant from day one when they've asked what is, the trait that you're looking for in a quarterback, and they've both said the same thing. You got to be accurate, right? So when we look at these guys and we really dive into that, we got to look at who has been really accurate in college football. Well, the two most accurate, in my opinion, have been Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to draft Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud. As Shane Steichen alluded to, you can kind of teach accuracy. But one thing I would probably agree with Chris Ballard on, and he said it back a couple press conferences ago, is when you evaluate these guys, they don't generally get a lot more accurate as they get in the NFL. You're talking about, a few percentage points here and there. Very rarely. I mean, I think Josh Allen's the outlier, right? Yeah. We all talk about Josh Allen, but there's just not Josh Allen sitting out there just waiting in the wind to be drafted every single year. There was a lot to like with his makeup, his build, and everything as far as that goes. I think accuracy is going to be a real big thing. Moby, I want to pop up Moby from Rockport, Indiana. Hey, everybody from my hometown right now, man. They're just
look at you, man. Did you put an APB out?
I got a fan club. Out there on Facebook, man. I mean, no, it's really cool. Thanks, Moby. I appreciate you hopping in here. But yeah, I think accuracy is going to be number one. Mm-hmm. Definitely, Chris Ballard's open-minded to a mobile quarterback, and he alluded to it. All of the top guys are going to be mobile anyways, right? Like he wasn't really pigeon-toning himself into a corner or anything like that. He's just basically saying it's pretty obvious that the modern NFL is going to a quarterback that can move, can get out of the pocket, and he's gonna most likely go that direction. I know that he had made a statement, and some people have taken it for whatever it's worth, but he made it something along the lines. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not so sure that you have to move up from 4, to go to 1. But then again, would you tell everybody your draft plan today, first day of the combine, and just let everybody know? Probably not.
Well, right? You had Ian Rappaport, right? Like Ian Rappaport was on NFL Network talking about it and saying he's heard. Like the Colts have placed calls. Like the Colts have. But so have like every other quarterback needy team in the top 10 at this point, right? So he's not going to tip his hand fully on what he's doing. He's not going to be like, I'm moving up. But I think that's always going to be taken out of context because it's Chris Ballard. It is. Like you don't know. And then I know we're going to get to it later. Like you said, the Jalen Carter news, that's an interesting tidbit that throws kind of an interesting little thing in there.
It's interesting because it affects us, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's going to affect us. There's no doubt about it. If he's not in the equation, that maybe makes Chicago pause a little bit on who they would trade with and what partners, because we all thought when this first started that they were going to have the option if they trade back to 2 or 4, you're still going to get a Will Anderson. You're still going to get a Jalen Carter. What happens and what transpires in the next few weeks with Jalen Carter in this situation is going to dramatically affect the top end of that draft and where he falls. We see it every year. A star player has something like this come up, and literally, Stephen, as he was getting ready to walk up and go on the podium, this story released,
Yeah.
which is kind of wild to think that that would happen that way.
That blew my mind when it broke, and it was like, then I think someone put out that I think it broke at like 9:15, like my time, 9:15 Central, and he was set to go to the podium, I think at 9:30. And then he put out a statement not long after where he was saying, hey, I think he was already on his way back to Athens at that point to deal with it. So I mean, his combine's done. I was going to say this too with the quarterbacks. I think one of the things that we learned today too is that someone said this on Twitter, and I wish I could remember who it was. I'd love to give him credit. So it seems to me though that the most important thing when it comes to who they're going to pick, we will never see. And that's the interview. That's what happens. That because they talked about the it factor, the ability to stay in the pocket and get drilled in the chest when you're throwing, the ability to make winning plays. I mean, Ballard jokingly said it, but you want a quarterback that's going to win. So I think what's the most important, we will never see. It's going to be this 15-minute interview at the combine. It's going to be their top 30 visit that they give. And don't get it twisted with this, you guys either. Zach, you can tell me if you think I'm wrong. All four of these quarterbacks are going to get top 30 visits. Like, they're not going to just invite one. All of them are coming in.
Yeah.
So those are going to be the most important things.
Well, I mean, it's important in the vetting process to be able to have multiple guys in there to see all of these different personalities. And, how would you know if you just bring in a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud? How would you know how they compare to the other people? Like you're going to get blown away by one of these guys. Well, you can't get blown away by somebody if you don't invite all of them, right? Yeah. You want to talk to them, have the conversation. You want to put them in comfortable situations and then stress them out and then bring them back to comfortability again. You really want to see how their mind works under duress and all of the factors. Colton says, he thinks it's clear. The end game, the Colts go number one for Bryce. However, I'm nervous they sit on their hands per usual and the Texans pull the trigger with the Bears to secure Bryce. A real possibility, Colton. I don't think that there's any inclination of what'll really happen. I just have a hard time believing no matter who trades with Chicago that they're going to sit there and pick at number one. Now, with Jalen Carter's situation, that may change everything. They may say, we got to walk away with the best defensive player in this draft, and they may just not be willing to trade it now. But for me, Ryan Poles was pretty transparent. He said, we need not a lot of players, and we need to get better. So, I mean, he is open game for it.
Well, the interesting thing with that too would be, let's say that this does, and we got a lot of comments and we'll get through them. Let's say this does impact them, and they're like, we're going to stay right there. It becomes at that point, it's null and void for the Colts trying to get ahead of the Texans. The key will become the Cardinals then. The Cardinals sitting there at 3 and saying they're open for business, which maybe they're not at that point because, you got to get somebody. But then there's that pick sitting right there. I think that's why Ballard leaves that door open too. Like, you don't know how this is going to shake out above him. Who knows? Maybe the Bears do just sit there. Someone said, I think even though they've committed to Justin Fields, right? There's a chance that they're weighing which one's going to get them more of a trade package, Justin Fields or the number one overall pick. And whichever one does that, that's where they're going to go. I mean, I think they'd be a fool to trade Justin Fields and start over with a rookie quarterback, but that's just me. Let's hit some of these comments. Let's see. You already popped up Drake. That's my boy. There's Drake. Love Drake. No matter, I'm going to.
Man, man, if you can get that, if you can get that done at the combine, that would be pretty impressive, my friend.
Tony, what's up, man? Basel, and this is a great. Basel says a lot of things, and we joke and we poke. This is a great perspective right here.
I couldn't agree.
Holding off making any judgment. It could be as stupid as the Jeffrey Simmons nonsense. We have no clue. We have no clue on what it is. I'm not going to throw shade at him. I feel bad, and I think to get like soapbox for just like one, like, let's not get it lost in like everything that we do know happened, and the car accident and everything like that. So I am with him 100% on this. Yeah. You withhold judgment until you know more.
I think you just let this play out, right? Like, you have to be transparent. It's real. It exists. It's an issue, but we got to find out more information. I think Basel makes a great point. You can't just jump and assume that everything that's being said actually did transpire. That being said, we're going to know. I mean, on draft night, we're going to know, right? If Jalen Carter goes on this just unbelievable slide, or if there's actually some sort of a legal issue, then obviously that changes the whole dynamic of the NFL draft when it comes to the defensive side of the football. But definitely, I probably am a lot like Basel. Hold that thought just for a second. Let this play out. More to come in probably the next couple of weeks, and then we'll see how that's really going to affect. Let's pop this one up. Joe says, I wouldn't give up next year's first to move up. I think that's where the line in the sand has to be. I think it's going to take it, Joe, unfortunately. I wish there were a way that we could move up and find some way of saving that as well. If you think about being a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, you may not have the best record next year, and you may be picking up a little bit higher. Probably not going to be picking in the top 5, but you definitely, potentially could be picking higher in the draft. And you'd love to have that first round pick. But I also say this, if you have a generational franchise quarterback that can change your franchise for the next 10, 12, 15 years, you're probably going to have to eat that first round pick next year. And that's just the business that we're in.
Well, what is it everyone says all the time, Zach, right? No one remembers does anybody, and I'm sure someone in the chat will remember this, but does anybody really truly remember what the Chiefs gave up to go get Mahomes? I'm not, and I want to clarify, I'm not saying that there's a Mahomes in this draft. All these prospects have concerns. And I'm saying this because we hear this recycled argument of next year's class is better. We heard it last year that this class was better. Then we're here to this class, and now it's, well, next class is better. By the time we get this time next year, well, the next class is better. Eventually, you have to trust. This is what Shane Steichen and Jim Bob Cooter and Turner, Cam Turner, the new quarterback coach, this is what they're getting paid to do.
Yeah.
We're not drafting an Andrew Luck or a Peyton Manning. They're not here. And for those, I've got to say this, man. I just got to get it off. For those saying wait for Arch Manning, we have no freaking clue what he's even going to look like. So, you can't keep kicking it down. You have to just go with it and figure out, and you make the draft. I am on the side that giving away next year's first is concerning. But I get it. I get that might be something, but I do also get the argument that I think that's going to be a point of a lot of negotiation.
Yeah.
I think they're going to do their best to not try to give that up if they move up.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ballard has been a pretty good negotiator when it comes to these deals as well. That's one thing you got to give him a lot of credit. Colton, I just really want you to clarify this question. I appreciate you throwing it up. He's don't
responding to Basel.
Okay. I just didn't know what it was necessarily reference to. Just want to make sure that we didn't miss anything as far as that goes. Ayo, thank you so much, my man, for hopping on here. As we go down the line. Guys, also a couple things before we get going. Just want to take a quick second, like we always try to do, to thank each and every one of you for joining this family. We're over 2,300 people strong now. When we started this thing, it was just exciting to have the first subscriber. And now we've reached this point where we're at 2,300. We're moving on to 3,000. And if you haven't joined this family, we invite you to do this. Use your voice. We always invite you, even if you don't agree with our takes. We certainly want to give you your time, your opportunity, use your voice, and show what you think about as far as, Colts Nation, because your opinion matters. It matters to us anyways. It really does. And you really are the lifeblood to what this show is involved. And also, additionally, we've had some people here recently that have joined and added to the membership. We've got memberships for, you can do a sticker, you can do $1.99, $4.99, $2.99. Anything helps. It all goes toward the show, helps us create better content, better lighting, better, microphones, just better all around, experience for you guys as we try to bring you this content. We work really hard, Stephen and I, to guests like Zach Kiefer we had on yesterday. We have had Kevin Bowen on several times, James Boyd, the Athletic, Bob Kravitz, Kent Sterling. I mean, we have worked very hard to give you good, opinionated, people who are in the know. And we just want to thank you guys, because if it weren't for you, we'd have nobody to bring on to even talk to. So thanks. Let's get to the next stuff. Kind of got a lot of comments up there.
I was going to say, I told you someone would know. There's what the Chiefs gave up.
Okay. Chiefs made a deal with the Buffalo Bills for the number 10 overall selection, trading the number 27, 91, as well as 2008 first round and the rights for Mahomes. Well, there you go. And also,
someone would know.
Yeah, and it was a little bit different. It was just one of those things that you're going to give up a lot. But we've said it a million times, and everybody else kind of knows this cliche. If you trade up and you get the right guy, 5 years from now, not a one of us is going to be on this live stream talking about, I can't believe that Chris Ballard gave up all of this. All we're going to be talking about is winning football games and have a chance to win a championship, right? Like that's what we want. That's what we want as Colts fans together as a family. We want to see it happen. So definitely Colton says you draft a quarterback basing it off of where he can be or he can become and what he has been motivated, not who he was in college. I would agree with most of that. You do have to project that potential. There's no question. But you need to see it, right? Like you need to see it in college. You need to see what he's got. The hardest part about the evaluation process, and that's why there's 32 jobs as a general manager in the NFL, is getting this thing right. It's very
hard. Steichen said this. Like I believe Steichen said this in his interview, in his presser today, was that you're basing it on, and I think, like you said, you look through the lens of who you want. There's 4 quarterbacks. Everyone likes a different person most of the time. And you look through the lens, you can hear that and go, he's talking about Anthony Richardson. But then you hear him talk about accuracy, and that's not Anthony Richardson. And then you hear him, though, talk about you can teach it. Yeah. Like there's just remember, too, it is so lying season.
Sure.
When it comes to some of this.
Yeah, like they're not going to sit there and give you, throw their cards on the table at this point, as far as that goes. Let's just see my man Corey back in action. Colts trading multiple picks to move up to 1 and grab Young, but the Colts end up having a bad season next year. We see our 2024 first round pick could have been Marvin Harrison Jr. Hashtag AR15 right there. There's the AR15. Hey, I don't know if you guys listen to Drake Wally, but my man is Anthony Richardson apologist, head of the Anthony Richardson fan club. There's going to be a lot of people. And you know what's crazy about Richardson, Stephen? And I feel like I'm on one side and other people are on the other. I feel like there are people who literally hate the idea, and there are people who absolutely just gush about this guy. And when you look at what he can do from an athletic standpoint and what he's going to do at this combine, he is going to blow people away from an athletic standpoint. I mean, everybody's probably already seen the between the legs dunk that he did on the video that kind of went viral. He's a supreme athlete. Zero question if Anthony Richardson is an NFL athlete. Now, is he an elite NFL quarterback? That's the hard part of the job, right, Stephen? Like that's the part of the job when you become a general manager that you have to be able to feel strong. And I'll keep coming back to this, and I know we texted about it earlier, and I'll let you have the floor when it comes to that. If I'm Chris Ballard and I know my job's on the line, I'm not drafting Richardson. I'm just not. Like it's just you feel like in this situation he wants to take a little more of a sure thing. Now, I say that. We sit here on draft night number 4, and then Chris Ballard dials it up and just goes that way because Shane Steichen and the rest of the team, Jim Bob Cooter, the whole staff, they're all over it. It is what it is. But for me, I don't see it with him being that pick there. If you stay at 4, if you move up, I'd have to think it's going to be Levis, Stroud, or Young. One of those 3 are going to be a Colt.
So. And I love Drake. Drake is amazing. We text. Drake's. I get what people say, and I'm gonna go like I can go one way or the other. Like here's the true basis, right? Like I'll convince myself of whoever we draft, I will love, right? Like he will be my dude. It doesn't matter. I can talk myself into any quarterback, but with Anthony Richardson, I think the interesting thing is, like you said, at a certain point, he's going top 10. Like that's not even a discussion. After the combine, he will probably move up from quarterback 4. I don't know where, but he'll probably maybe be QB2. I mean, who knows, right? Like he's going to blow away everybody. He's doing everything. And fun fact is he is actually throwing right before CJ Stroud. That came out because they're going alphabetical order, right? So that's kind of funny. But I say all that to say, like, he's played like 12. He's started 12 games, like somewhere around there. He has a 50. I looked it up because they talked about it. He has a 54% completion percentage, and I'm not big on things like that. I don't delve into a ton of stats, but they were talking about this one time on ESPN. That is the worst completion percentage of anybody who's being considered to be a first round draft pick. At a certain point, here's the thing with him. If you draft him, you are drafting 100% on traits, in my opinion. Well, I've said it across the board. Like I watched that Florida State game, right? My family's Florida State boosters. Everybody knows this. A franchise quarterback doesn't not complete a pass for a quarter and a half when you need it. Like you got to have it. Like you're losing, and you don't complete a pass till midway through the fourth quarter. And a great example people use with him too is that first game of the year. I think it was Daniel Jeremiah on Pat McAfee. If you were an alien and you landed, and the only game you got to watch was Florida versus Utah, you'd look at him and go, "Man, that's the number one pick. That's the best player in football." And then you turn and you watch the Kentucky game the following week, and he's horrendous. Like, it's hard for me to mash it up. I just don't. I can't. If you sit at 4 and you take him, I'll convince myself. If you trade up to 1, like some of the people are saying, and you take him, you are betting. I think I told you, in my opinion, you are betting that this new staff that you put together that I think can develop. They are putting together a staff strictly to develop a young quarterback. You are placing the biggest bet. Me and you talked about it. It's like, you want to talk about all chips in, you are placing the biggest bet that Steichen can develop him. And that's a big bet.
It really is. Want to get to Eddie James and some of these other comments. He prefers CJ Stroud, QB1, Anthony Richardson 2. Eddie loved that take. We'll go over here and get to this one here. I'm out on Richardson. I'd rather have Stroud or Young. I'm just not sold on Richardson. Very good point. Nomad wants to say, history could be made for the smallest QB star in the NFL. No doubt about it. Guys, also, we've done this before. We invite you. If you guys ever wanted to just hop in here on this live stream, all you got to do is hit us up in the comments. Say, I would love to join. Steven and I will find a way to get you something sent over to Twitter. You can come in on just audio. You don't have to do video, or you could do video. We don't care. If you just want to just really voice your opinion and have a little bit more of a live interactive experience while we're here on the live stream. So that's just the way it's going to be. And we always offer that. Let's go to Joe and then Tyrell. CJ Stroud this year, and then Marvin Harrison Jr.
That's
next
Joe
year.
Burrow route, right? That's that big old Joe Burrow route.
It's pretty cool if you ask me.
Nice.
And then we've got, I think the Colts going to draft Levis, and I can't argue with that. I mean, he feels the most Ballard-ish to me. That being said, it's going to be more than just Ballard. It's going to be all of that scouting department plus Shane Steichen plus Jim Bob Cooter. It's going to be a lot of things involved.
Even Basel says he'd try to be optimistic with Levis.
Wow. It makes me nervous, but I'd be willing to be optimistic.
Holy smokes.
We like that. Let's see what Eddie says. CJ Stroud needs to be ready.
Well, and I think that's a great point that Eddie brings up, is something that's also lost, right? Is Ballard mentioned they want to have someone they can come in, and it kind of felt like he was saying, and play winning football and that they're going to put him in a position to play winning football.
Yeah.
That doesn't, for me, I mean, that could be a Richardson because you would rely mostly on his athleticism probably while you tweak everything. To me, that feels like it narrows it down a little bit more. You're looking more towards Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and potentially Will Levis, right? And let's not forget, I'm just going to say this, Will Levis has the Peyton Manning stamp. I know people don't love that, but like Peyton Manning, he's worked with him. It's like Jim Irsay loves him some Peyton. I'm just saying.
All right, let's go Drake here. Drake's going to hit us with – guys, if you haven't had a chance to hop over to Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, do it, man. I mean, those guys do a great job. Him and
Go
Andrew.
to the website, read the articles too. Drake does a great job with those.
They are relentless. I don't know if Drake ever sleeps, if I'm being honest. I mean, every 5 seconds on Twitter, he has a new article going up, which is unbelievable and outstanding. Richard, Stroud, Young, Levis for me, but all four would still make sense. Yeah, I mean, and and the fun part about this is with us and the fans, you can make a compelling argument for all four of them if you're really being honest. You can really make a compelling argument, and we're going to talk and we're going to talk and we're going to talk, and then they're going to draft somebody, and we're all going to jump on board and support them for the most part. You know, when it comes to that, we'll just have to see. Eddie James said Eason 2.0.
I've heard you talking about Levis. I've heard Eason 2.0. We've heard combo of Wentz and Allen, right? We've heard a lot of different things. I feel like I'm going to say this, and then I was so glad you popped that up. I'll say this with the Levis stuff. I don't think there's a quarterback that gets more hate on Colts Twitter than Will Levis. It's kind of crazy. Like you only ever see his lowlights and no highlights. And with Anthony Richardson, you only ever see his highlights, none of his lowlights. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, he kind of gets overlooked when you compare all of those guys together. I do want to take a quick second to pop this one up.
That's a great one.
Let's see. Hold on. Go back up there because he just does a great job of following us and interacting with us. How you doing, my man? Hey, guys, love the podcast as always. Would definitely take CJ Stroud over Young, Richardson, or Levis. I think Stroud and Steichen would be a super good fit. I think Stroud has Lamar Jackson potential. Probably pump the brakes on that part of it just from an athletic standpoint. Maybe from a superstar standpoint, you know, when you put it all together. But Lamar's a different beast. I mean, we've really never seen many people, if any, you know, him and Michael Vick are just electric with their legs. I think when you think of CJ Stroud, you think here's a guy who wants to throw first and use his legs to move the chains, as he did obviously in the Georgia game. But very good points. Thank you so much, Adam, for hopping on here. Let's get down to the other comments here. Will Scott. As long as we don't try to trade back and sign Derek Carr, Will, I tell you, you're liable to see the city that I live in literally just go straight to West 56 and just cave the doors in if that ends up happening. We got to draft a quarterback, and I think they will. Just from everybody I've talked to, I do think they will.
Well, I was going to say with that too. Did you notice in the presser for Ballard and that there were no questions outside the quarterback? Like I think there was one maybe about free agency, maybe, but it was only quarterback. And I don't think he tells you everything without telling you nothing, but it doesn't feel like he's denying any of it. Now it's just a question of, are you going to go at 4 or 1? That tends to be it. I don't think anybody would buy anything he's selling to say he's not drafting a quarterback at 4.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to draft somebody. We don't know who he's going to draft. We don't know where he's going to draft, but I think pretty strongly that he's going to end up drafting. He has a relationship with Ryan Poles. It makes a lot of sense. We're always going to connect the dots. But in this case, I think it's actually real. I don't know that it's necessarily going to transpire and it's going to come to fruition, but I think there's going to be a real interest on both sides to get it done. You know, Brian Poles kind of let the cat out the bag too the other day and said, you know, we wouldn't want to go too far back. And well, I mean, you know, if you're Carolina and you're sitting at 9, you don't like to hear that from him, right?
Yeah.
And I think Ryan Poles is being smart in that. Like, you have the number one pick. You're a bad football team. You need to become better. You need to do two things. You need to upgrade at positions of extreme value, and you need to acquire more picks. You need to do both, and you have an opportunity to do that. If you trade too far back in this thing, no way. No way you're going to get the same level of player. And then, you don't get a franchise changing quarterback. Let's get a couple. Drake hot take. Bryce Young would be the all-time Ballard would avoid his need to draft a quarterback logic. Young could work well in Sykin's offense. I don't disagree with that. Not at all. Not at all.
It could be, man. It could be. I
Oh,
was going to touch on.
I got to do this one real quick.
Go.
Got my wife, Amy. Hey, guys, looking very forward to the quarterback in the draft. Definitely not Carr. Not a Carr fan. No thanks. That's a smart lady. That's why I married her. Yeah, absolutely. We are in the Boyd household. We are team draft a quarterback, and just don't, just draft a quarterback and don't overthink it. Corey Lampkins hopped in here. I heard Zach say he would run it back with. He's just joking. I heard Zach say.
Hey, I didn't realize till this week that, we're not going to go to the Carson stuff. I didn't realize he still lives in Indianapolis. He still lives there. That's where his main house is. It blew me away.
Yeah. Well,
he was expected to be there longer.
Man, yeah, that's. I don't think we're going to see that happen at all. I think there is not good. They're not on good terms. Let's just put it that way. When you talk about those,
in Basel right here, what you popped up, he brings it up. That's the genuine. It's not Bryce Young's height. I feel like we've had this conversation a lot. It's not whether he's 5'10" or 5'10 and 3/4 or 6 foot. It's none of that. It's his weight. That's the biggest concern. That's the biggest. Can he take the hits that are naturally going to come? Now, I'll say this. Me personally, I thought Kyler was small, and you worried about him and Lamar. Lamar's been more dinged up lately. Kyler was a non-contact thing, but if you can, the question is going to be: can you avoid at his size? Can he avoid the big hit?
Yeah.
That's the thing. You can get hit. We've seen it, and he's gotten up. But can you avoid the big hit? Can you be kind of like that slippery that you see? Like Kyler is slippery. He doesn't really take big hits.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm less concerned than most people just from the standpoint that, Steven, he's played in the SEC, right? That's the closest thing that you're going to get to NFL talent on a week in, week out basis. These are big physical athletes, and he was able to compete at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't play on the best Alabama team this year as well. I mean, he just about made it to that Final Four, even with what they had out there. Not your typical wide receiving core, and just playmakers all over the field. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm probably a little more bullish on him than some, but I'm not gonna be disappointed if you walk away with this draft with C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young. I'm not gonna be disappointed.
Well, and I agree. But I go further. I we all have, like we said, we all have who we want. I wanted to touch on this with Eddie. Is Lamar a good comp? The comp is Cam Newton. That's the comp. Truthfully, it's the size, it's the speed, it's the physicality, it's the arm strength. That's the comp that you get a lot. Lamar is smaller, slighter, and honestly, way faster. And Anthony Richardson is going to be fast, but Lamar is track fast. So he's the comp that you hear for him a lot is going to be Cam Newton.
But he's, Anthony Richardson's physical, man. Like Lamar is trying to get out on the edge and the perimeter and just take off and leave, right? Anthony Richardson obviously is trying to get big gains, chunk yards. But if he has to lower his shoulder and kind of get a little more physical, a la Josh Allen, I think you're probably going to see that. And I think that, the comp with Cam is the same. And Richardson is likely already better throwing than Newton was as a rookie. Also has a bigger arm. Does have a bigger arm. But let's be fair. Let's play devil's advocate. I think it's fair to say that Cam Newton was much more heralded, when he was getting drafted, and he had really had a lot of success in college football. Right?
He literally won
highest level. I mean,
he won everywhere. I was telling someone when we were talking about Anthony Richardson and the comp to Cam Newton, and I'm 37 years old. I've watched a lot of college football and a lot of pro football, and I said this: Cam Newton at Auburn might be the greatest college football player I've ever watched. Like, he was just a human cheat code. And he went undefeated. Won a national title, won a Heisman. Anthony Richardson didn't do that stuff. And I know he might be a better thrower, but man, the stark up and down for him and the accuracy issues. And I know Steichen said today he believes you can teach it. But man, if you're staring at someone who's a little bit better, a little bit more accurate, we've gone over it. You're betting on upside. You're betting on stuff you've not seen. It worries me. Anthony Richardson worries me.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. Anyone of you guys could do me a favor and ask one of them guys if it's true about Matt Ryan going back to his old team and retire. I know he probably can't read my messages or anybody's. I don't know what his plans are. I mean, it would be awesome if Matt Ryan just retired and worked out some sort of a contract buyout with us. But that being said, he's a businessman. He's probably going to take his money and we're going to cut him. I mean, it's just that simple. I expect him to cut Foles and Ryan.
I've heard that. Have you heard the Niners stuff that they're looking for a veteran to pair?
But wouldn't want to trade. They wouldn't want to trade for him. I don't think.
They're going to wait for us to cut him.
Yeah, you have to cut him and then sign him.
Solid, man. Like they got a good relationship. The Niners and the Colts. John Lynch, Chris Ballard.
Yeah, I mean,
you'd have to. Nice.
You'd have to completely restructure it, though. But what about this? Something I've never really talked about or discussed. But what if you talked about with Matt Ryan into doing a complete buy down on this contract and saying we're going to rip it up, we're going to redo it for a 1-year deal if you want to come and back up and mentor this rookie quarterback? Doubt he would do it. I'm being honest. It's just an idea that I've thrown out there. Sign him for $3 or $4 million to sit on the bench and mentor this guy. And if you draft a guy that you don't feel comfortable to play, maybe you start Matt Ryan a week or two and then let him take over. But just to be a mentor, that's a possibility. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they move on completely from that.
Well, that was what you're saying there too is great, because that was a question we had earlier, and I wish I'd have to scroll way up to find it. Was who would we think would come in? Like, what's that? They're going to sign a veteran bridge. There's going to be something like that. We talked about
Minshew a million times.
We've heard Minshew a name a lot lately. Again, because he just got released as Mariota. That was another name, because they were from our understanding last year, that was who they were going to sign till Matt Ryan came available. Like, it was going to be Mariota. Like, that was going to be the quarterback. So that's a possibility. I would not be stunned. We've talked about it on the live stream on Family Time before. I would not be shocked if that entire room is different, if everyone in that room is gone.
Yeah. I mean,
can you really be upset? It was so bad. That's like when you hear people complain about some of the coaches that we've lost, so the people we've lost. Bro, man, we won 4 games. I'm not upset.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's going to have to be a person who has a really good football mind, able to really work in that room and teach a young guy, and B, more than actually the most important factor is this guy coming in is going to have to be okay with being a backup, right? Like
Josh McCown. Like that, I'm not saying he's great, but like that Josh McCown,
you have to be okay with being a backup.
Chase Daniels.
And not be sold on any type of false idea that he actually has a chance of being a starting quarterback for a long term on this team. I don't see that happening. Let's get to some of the Mariota wants to play. He wouldn't play for Indianapolis. I don't know. I mean, but AO, what if he doesn't have a choice? What if he can't go anywhere and start? Does he still want to play football? And if so, you have to be a backup. I mean, it's just something to consider. I'm not so sure Mariota gets another starting job, if I'm being honest. I mean, with having you got Derek Carr, the possibility of Aaron Rodgers out there, those guys are going to take precedent.
Jimmy
G. someone's probably going to give Baker Mayfield a cheap 1-year flyer, someone who misses in the draft and the free agency cycle.
Hot take with him. I think he's back with the Rams.
Might even see Carson Wentz, last ditch right before training camp. Someone just completely struck out or an injury happens. You just don't know that it's just unforeseeable injury, stuff like that. We'll see. We'll see.
Mariota to the Battlehawks.
That's
they have McCarron, man. Someone mentioned that for Carson Wentz. They were like, you think Dwayne The Rock is on the phone saying, hey, Carson, you want to come be the face?
Yeah. I mean, hey, and this is a great.
AO agrees. Carson to XFL.
Jimmy G, had that comment popped up a second ago. Jimmy G is definitely going to be a person who's going to be of interest, and he could be a starter if you're a good team and you're close and you really just need the quarterback. If you're the Jets, teams like that, you're absolutely going to do it. I wouldn't be
Raiders.
Raiders make a ton of sense. Obviously, they know Jimmy G. Makes a lot of sense there too. I don't think Jimmy G, if you put Jimmy G in a situation where the team's not very good, let's just for an example, if you were to send him out to Atlanta, right? Well, I think that's a real tough ask for Jimmy G because he's a type of quarterback that generally plays smart football, doesn't turn the football over, and has the ability to make enough throws in a game to win when you have a real good running game, a really good defense to back him up. Now, if you're asking him to go out there and throw the ball 45 times a game, sling it all over the field, throw for 4,500 yards in an NFL season, 30 touchdowns, I don't think Jimmy G is going to be your guy. So a much more established football team when it comes to him anyways.
I could see the Raiders, the Jets, a lot of young talent for him. What's funny is I think if he doesn't hurt himself and have that surgery on his shoulder last year, I think he was the Colts quarterback. I think he was the target. And then they backed off.
And also, one thing that I want to start doing on these live streams, it's literally going to be – this is how random it is. It's so random that I didn't even tell you I was going to do this. But we're going to do a random non-football thought every single live stream.
Oh.
Today's question for the chat is I was just thinking about this driving home. How much money would you have to make a day to be a panhandler? How much money would you have to stand on the corner and ask for money? What's the number that makes you happy? Do you walk home and say, man, I made $150 a day. I made 100. Are you going to 50 good enough? Is 200? What's the number, man? What number do you have to have a day to walk away and be like, man, that was a pretty damn good day.
What did you see today?
Listen, these are random, crazy thoughts. And I thought, you know what? We talk about so much football. Love to get to know people on a personal level and just kind of laugh and joke a little bit. Look at that. $400. $400.
I mean, man.
I feel like that is.
Am I working 9 to 5 Monday through Friday?
I feel like if you're making 400, I might panhandle this weekend just to check.
I'm telling you what, man. Colton with the 500.
Look at this.
Corey.
We got 500. He says scared money don't make money. He makes 500. He'll go bet it all. He'll go bet it all right there on Caesars.
I love that phrase. Scared money don't make money, man.
Yeah, and Colton's the same way. He said I gotta have 500 a day. 500 a day. That's a lot to panhandle. That's a lot of dollar bills. That is. I mean,
where are you panhandling at,
dude? If you're panhandling and making 500 a day, you are legitimately.
You don't need to be panhandling for too long.
Dude, you're maybe mining for gold if it comes down to that. Look,
Drake.
This is a true Indiana boy right here. Pop this up. Look at this. $100 and some McDonald's. Hey, that is an Indiana. That is, if you want to know what it's like to live here in this city, read this comment. $100 and some McDonald's. He's happy. He's happy to get out there. What are you gonna have? You're gonna get you a Big Mac at McDonald's. You're gonna get you a chicken.
They got a system. They're gonna kick your if you just walk out there trying to take their money.
This is great, man. This is great. Oh man.
Oh man. I like that. A little random question. That's good.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen. I mean, in the Florida Panhandle, that was pretty funny. Anyways,
guys, Panhandle.
thanks for kind of participating with that. I just thought it would be really cool to do a random question of the live stream that has nothing to do with football. I'll be thinking about it next Wednesday or Thursday whenever we decide to do the live stream. We'll have another random question.
Mm-hmm.
Let's tie this up, okay? As we're gonna talk about Chris Ballard, Shane Steichen, moving forward, what do you want to see? What are you looking to see from the combine that you say, man, I'm hoping to get a little more clarity when it comes to it? Do you want to see who we're actually talking to, interviewing? Do you want to see more on the field stuff? Where are you at with that?
I think for me, Colts wise, like want to know what they're doing. I want to know probably more who they're talking to. Fan wise of just football, like I love to watch. I want to see Anthony Richardson sling the ball. I want to see Will Levis. I want to see C.J. Stroud. Like I do want to see that, but man, I mean, there's just the most important things of the combine are kind of the dull things. Like I want to see what does Bryce Young actually measure. You know, it is like what does he actually do? But as far as like if I watch them and I see a pretty ball, like it's such a controlled environment that I don't know if it's going to be like, oh, that's the guy. Even on the pro days, right? Even on the pro days, you're going to be that way. For me, I think looking forward to try to get an understanding of Steichen and Ballard and where they sit, I want to know who they're talking to. That's what I would. That probably what interests me the most.
I agree, man. I mean, I think that's really all you can do in these situations. You're gonna look at the throws. I think it always when all the dust settles and the combine's over, the metrics, the hype, the TV, all of that stuff goes and the lights kind of dim. I think it always goes back to what they've done on the field. I think every scout will tell you, no matter what, you've got to see it on the field. You've got to see it translate. It's great that I watched this guy throw the ball 70 yards down the field. It's great that he can run a 4.5 40. It's, all of these different things. It's great that he's 6'4". It's great that all of these different variables. But if he can't put it together on the football field, how does he play now? And how does that translate to the NFL? Those two things collectively are going to ultimately decide who's going to be the next quarterback, the franchise quarterback for hopefully the next 10, 12, 15 years. And that should be really, really fun. Steven, this has been a pretty cool live stream. We've had great interaction.
Yes.
Thank every single one of you for coming on and just hopping in here, lighting us up with the comments like you always have and you always do. Any last words before you send us out?
I mean, the only thing I can kind of think of, and I'm going to put a little bow on this here, is check out our sponsor, WagerWire, and place your bet on who the Colts are going to pick. Boom, right? That's a good little segue, right? Like go over wagerwire.com. They're working actively on the app. I talked with our guy there not long ago, and I didn't even tell you this, but as we get kind of into a little bit of the doldrums of the offseason, we're actually going to have one of the main two people who own and operate WagerWire on the show to talk to everybody about what they can do, what you can do with that. Just a fun little one for you guys, right?
Yeah, man.
So go on there, use WagerWire. You can do all those things. If you play some bets, like I got my Padres stuff on, so like if you want to place bets on that, do that. Yeah. But place a bet on who. Go ahead. Anthony Richardson is like dropping quick. Did you see that, by the way? Did you see he went from like 10,000 to 7,500 to?
Oh yeah.
Like, he's down to like 750 now for the number one overall pick. So get those while you can. Yeah, man, it's fun as always. Keep an eye out. Enjoy the combine. The day that everyone wants to see the most is going to be Saturday. That's the quarterbacks working out. They're the last day this time. So keep your eyes on that. Keep your ears open. And man, like you say every time, like we always say, I love you. I know Zach loves you. Had a ton of fun. We're out.